Hey you guys, it's me Crystal. So let's get into my February reading wrap up. And yeah, these are the books that I had on the February TBR. So I think that's all of them. And then with the magic of editing, these are the books that I read, plus I listened to an audiobook. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the books I did not get to. I did not get to City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is going in the previous TBR jar. I also did not get to Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, but I am actually rolling this over onto March's TBR. And then I did not get to this book because this is a sequel. I didn't like book one. And so now we're going to talk about the two books that I DNF'd. And I DNF'd The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness and Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. And it was pretty much for the same reason, which was I just didn't like the writing. I don't think there's anything wrong with these books. I actually think I would like the stories, but I wouldn't have a good experience. And so when it comes to reading, I don't just want a good book. I also want a good experience. And so while I may have enjoyed these stories, I would not have had like a good experience. And the problem I had with the writing in this one is that, okay, so first off, this is being marketed as a bloody fairy tale, and it definitely does have that vibe. It does feel kind of dark, bloody fairy tale like, and a lot of people say, I think he's a high prince, that he kind of reminds some people of the Darkling from the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and he does kind of have what I would call budget Darkling vibes if the Darkling was younger and like less polished and like kind of wild. And so this, the High Prince shows up and he's just like, he's bad, he's attacking people, he has a scar on his face. I'm like, okay, I dig. But the writing, and everybody is different. So this book felt to me like somebody was rambling in my ear about something I didn't care about. So I set the book down and I was like, maybe I'm just tired. I'll pick it up tomorrow. I picked it up the next day. I still couldn't get into it. So I'm like, I don't know, let me try something else. So I picked up this one. And then I set this one down. And so I picked it up a third day and I still didn't want to read it. It was still getting on my nerves. And so I'm like, whatever, I quit. And then like with The Discovery of Witches, the problem I was having with the writing is that this book was boring me to death. It's like I really, really wanted to read this one and I really wanted to read Wicked Saints. So I kept pushing myself to read past the point, like way past the point I wanted to quit. And then I couldn't take it anymore. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm dying of boredom. So anyway, DNF this. So kind of going out of order, I did read a picture book. I read I've Loved You Since Forever by Hoda Kotb, and I gave it 4 stars. You know, the artwork is stunning. You know, this is a really good book for babies, but it was very calming, and I needed that after one of these books I read. So I thought this was very adorable and cute and beautiful. So then I'm not going to talk much about this one. I gave this one 3 stars. I didn't like it. It's a sea witch origin story, kind of Little Mermaid-esque. I left a review for this. I left a full review of my thoughts on this book. You can watch it if you want. I'll link it in the description. But yeah. So right after I finished Sea Witch, I picked up I Would Leave Me If I Could, a collection of poetry by Halsey. And when this fell to lift my spirits, that's when I picked up the picture book. But I also gave this 4 stars. I thought it was really good poetry. It's not really for me. I'm more of a, let me talk about my feelings in like a metaphorical way. And she's like, let me vomit in a bucket and paint a picture with it. And I'm just like, it's not really for me. It's a little more visceral and like raw and strong than I personally prefer. But I did think it was really good poetry for the most part. I mean, there are a few poems that I'm like, but some of them I thought were just really, really good. So I think she's a good writer I'm not super familiar with her music, but I'm familiar enough that I think if you like her music, I think this is very similar in tone to her music. So then I read Death Note volumes 4, 5, and 6. And just a quick refresher, Death Note is about this guy. He finds this Death Note, and it is a notebook that belongs to a god of death. And it was dropped by a death god who was bored, and so he drops it in the human world, hoping a human would come along, pick it up, cause some mischief, and alleviate him of some of his boredom. So the notebook is picked up by Light, and anybody whose name you write in the notebook, they die. So I've been having a lot of fun reading these books. I gave volume 4 4 stars, and then we can take a quick look at the artwork. This is the God of Death who dropped the notebook. He really kind of grew on me. I really liked him a lot. But anyway, I gave this 4 stars just because we added some other plot lines and some characters for the same reason I kind of gave volume 3 4 stars. It was just getting too much. Things were getting a little convoluted. I was getting a little overwhelmed. And I was still struggling a little bit to maintain my suspension of disbelief, which continued throughout the rest of the series. But I thought this was a lot of fun. And then I gave volumes... bunch of books just fell to the floor. And then I gave volumes 5 and 6. I gave these both 5 stars. I feel like they're both more like 4.5 stars, but I had such a good time with these books. Like, the way this ended, like, it was so satisfying, but like, I didn't get the ending I wanted, but it was still like really satisfying, and I got the ending that I was expecting to get. But the author like went right up to like the 11th hour and 59 minutes and made me believe that something else might happen, and then they just pulled the rug out from under me. And I was just like, I can't handle this anymore. But anyway, I was going to watch the anime. I wasn't planning on finishing this month, but I'm getting rid of Hulu. And so I was like, I only have a couple weeks if I want to watch the anime. And I decided I can't go through all of this again right now. So I decided not to watch the anime. But yeah, it was a really good time. And also the reason why I gave these last 2 volumes 5 stars is because it was very streamlined. Like, they didn't add any like side plots, and everything was just kind of like starting to come together and like build towards this climax that is so satisfying. And I just had a really good time with these. So yeah. So then I read The Wise by Taryn Fisher, and this is a suspense novel about this woman named Thursday, and she is married to Seth, and Seth has 2 other wives, and all the wives are not allowed to contact each other, but then she contacts wife number 3 that she calls Monday. And Monday is pregnant, and Monday has some bruises, and so Thursday is like, oh my gosh, is Seth abusive? And, you know, things start unraveling, literally unraveling from there. I gave this 3 stars because, like, I finished this book, and at first I hated it, right? Because, like, halfway through the book, it's like the author was like, just took a complete 180, and now we have a completely different story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait. And I was like, what's going on? And I cannot put this book down. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And it is crazy. And I finished the book, and I'm like, I don't know if I like this. I think I may have hated this. And I was like, oh no, 2 stars, unhaul. I don't want to look at this book anymore. But then after like 5 minutes, I was like, actually, I kind of want to read this book again. And actually, I think I am going to give it 3 stars. And actually, I kind of want to read it again right now. I didn't. But I have not been this irritated by a book in a long time. Like, usually when I read, like, no matter how much I love the book, I can find the stopping point and put the book down. I read this book in less than a day. I just read it, like almost straight through with no breaks because I could not put it down. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what she did. It was just so entertaining and so interesting. Even when everything was like so crazy, I was still just like glued to the book, and I'm just like, I can't stop reading this. Anyway, so even though I gave this 3 stars, the more I think about this book, the more I like it. So I don't know. And then I read a nonfiction book. This is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And, you know, it's self-explanatory. An easy, proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. And so I gave this 4 stars. I thought he had a lot of really good information in here. He was a little long-winded for my personal taste, but I thought this was a really good book. And I made a lot of like highlights in the book, you know. I highlighted a lot of things. And I thought it was helpful and encouraging. Also, I totally forgot, and I knew this was going to happen. I listened to an audiobook. So I listened to Map of Shadows by J.F. Penn, and this is a dark fantasy. It's about this girl named Sienna, and she can travel into a map and show up in the real world where she was focusing in on the map. And then some people like travel through water and some people travel through fire. But she's special because she's a blood cartographer. And not only can she travel just through a map, through air, she can also draw a map with her blood and travel through that map. And this book was a little gross. Okay, so I gave it 3 stars. It's book 1 of a trilogy. I feel like book 1 comes to a satisfying enough conclusion. So I'm definitely not burning to pick up books 2 and 3. I also don't want to because I didn't really like it very much. But it was a little gross because there were skin maps. Like, there were a lot of maps made out of human skin. I just found that really gross. And also, halfway through the book, there were like a couple other point of views that just had like one scene. And I just don't like that. It's personal preference. I prefer as few point of views as possible. But if there's going to be multiple point of views, I want them to be there earlier rather than later. I don't like to be surprised with a point of view halfway through the book. But I did find this kind of interesting. But overall, I just thought it was kind of underdeveloped. It's like the world didn't feel very large. It felt like it began and ended on the page, you know, and I thought it had pretty decent imagery, but then it's like the characters felt kind of unrealistic. Like, their reactions didn't feel natural. Because like I said, there's maps being drawn on people's skin, there's blood everywhere, it's very violent. And they reacted, and you know, there's a character who like straight up murders someone. And the way the characters react to these, you know, this baby being sacrificed, to, you know, people dying, to the blood, you know, to murder, they're just like, you know, and it just wasn't very realistic. And this book is like 200 pages long, so it's like not even really long enough for me to really flesh things out. I mean, it's very, very fast paced, but it's just moving too fast for me to connect to it. But it was a little interesting. I mean, I did finish the book, but I probably only finished it because I was listening to it on audiobook in the car. So I think it was just okay. Like, the book was fine. Okay, and the last book I finished literally the day I'm filming this video is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is book 2 in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. And Shadow and Bone trilogy, you have people who are masters of the small science, so they have like these abilities and they can do stuff. And our main character, Alina, is someone, you know, an undiscovered talent. And so in this book, they're kind of on the run from the Dark Lane. And at the very beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. It's gonna be my favorite book of the month. And then we hit like the 300-page drag of political talk and war talk, and I know some people loved this. I don't care. I did not need 300 pages of them preparing to fight the Dark Lane, and at first I thought it was holding up pretty well, and no one was really getting on my nerves, and I was still really interested. I didn't want to pick up the book and read it, but I still wanted to finish it. And when I forced myself to pick it up and read it, like I was invested in the book. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. And I had no problem reading for a while. But about 100 pages from the end, I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't. And I started getting stressed out. Then we get to the end though. And oh my gosh, it was so exciting. You know, so I still maintained I did not need 300 pages of lead up, but I'm not into, you know, world politics, you know, and war prep and things of that nature. They spend most of this book talking about politics and, you know, the impending fight with the Darkling, and they're looking for this bird, and Alina and Maul are like arguing and stuff, and I'm just like I said, I thought I was holding up pretty well, but again, to a fight, and I couldn't do it anymore. But anyway, I still really like Alina and Maul. Oh my gosh, I love Nikolai. I cannot wait to read The King of Scars. I'm so excited. But I gave this book 4 stars. Overall, I thought it was really, really good. And if the pacing had worked better for me, I don't think I would have gone so, I don't know, like losing patience a little bit. It took me a lot longer to read this book than I wanted to, even though I'm like perfectly happy with the number of books I read this month. I really honestly had time to read like 1 or 2 books, and I didn't get to them because it took me so long to get through this book because I just wasn't motivated to pick it up. But I'm still really looking forward to the 3rd book, and I did really like this. I just like, you know, didn't love it as much as the first one. I don't think it was suffering from like middle book syndrome. It didn't feel too pointless, but it definitely feels like a bridge book. It feels like this is a book you have to go through so that you can understand the exciting finale. At least I hope it's exciting. I do still like the Darkling as a villain. He's just such a good villain. And so I did enjoy that. I enjoyed, like, you know, these little hallucinations that Alina was having. And I just loved all the scenes with Nikolai and them. He's just so, like, great to follow. He's so interesting. So those are all the books that I read in February. I read 10 books. So not bad. I think I had a pretty good reading month. So I'm going to now switch over to talking about what's on my March TBR. Before I get to my TBR though, let's talk about what my favorite book of the month is. So last month I used like one of those cameras that like print a picture out since I had it, and I'm like, oh, let me use it. And I didn't really like the quality, so I changed it. I'm just printing the picture out. I didn't change the book. This is my favorite book for January. You know, but I decided to just print the book cover out, cut it out, and paste it in the box, rather than, you know, have something that I don't want to look at later. So my favorite book for February, can you guess? Can you guess what it is? It's kind of a surprise. It's The Wise by Taryn Fisher, and it's for the reasons that I mentioned. It's because I could not put that book down. It was massively entertaining. I thought it was really, really interesting, and plus, yes, the more I think about it, the more I like it, and I do definitely want to read that book again. It's my favorite book of the month just because it's my favorite book that I read. It was so entertaining and interesting to me. So now onto my March TBR. So I decided to do a reader's choice. I decided to try picking the books myself instead of picking them randomly. And you guys, so I had a bunch of books that I'm like, I want to read these books right now. So when I wrote them all down, I had like 7. And so I'm like, surely I can pick out 3 more books myself. No, it took me 5 days, and I finally just inked them in so I would stop thinking about it. So this is where I went with. I went with Reader's Choice. And okay, so March's aesthetic theme is vines. Don't ask me why I picked this picture, okay? But here's my TBR page. And it's kind of vines, right? And this would be my reading wrap-ups page. Very loose interpretation of vines. And this will be the page where I put my favorite reads for March. So let me get those books together and let's talk about them. And I'm really excited. Alrighty, so these are the books on my March TBR. Plus, there's an ebook that I've already started reading about 100 pages in, and that is Bone Music by Christopher Rice. I downloaded this from Prime Reading some time ago, and so I couldn't stand not having the ebook to read. So I just kind of focused on my Prime Reading books, and I went through a couple of them before I found one that I could stick with for more than a few pages, and that was Bone Music by Christopher Rice. And this is, I think, like an urban fantasy. So basically it's about, I guess there's several point of views, which again is a peeve of mine. And I'm in the middle of one right now that I'm like, this better have a point, because it doesn't really right now that I can tell, and it's starting to get on my nerves. But from what I can gather, the book is about this girl, and she's going by Charlotte now, but her birth name is Trina, and she was abducted by these serial killers when she was 9 months old. And so they kind of raised her to be their burning girl, to help them burn the belongings of the women that they abducted and tortured and murdered. And so she's rescued when she's 8 by her father, her birth father. And he writes this book about her experiences that he writes under the guise of helping people avoid, the people who had abducted her. So the media rights for the books were bought by the studio, who wanted to turn it into a horror movie franchise. And so our main character, Charlotte, has been haunted by this horror movie franchise for years. So she's in therapy, and this guy, her therapist, is like, I have this pill that's like really good for anxiety, and I really think you should take it, and you should take one now. He talks her into taking this pill, and then he immediately shoves her out of his office. And I was like, oh my gosh. Which I don't think that's a spoiler. I'm pretty sure it says that in the blurb when I skimmed over it. After I started reading the book, because I was trying to figure out what this book was about. But anyway, this pill gives her some Superman-esque abilities for a temporary amount of time. And this book is kind of crazy so far. kind of crazy and violent and wild and weird. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm about 100 pages into what the ebook is saying. It's a 450 something page book. So I feel like I'm off center a little bit. So then, like I said, I'm rolling over Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is, I don't know what this book is about, but it's white sci-fi. I still really want to read it, so I'm rolling it over. And then, of course, I have Ronin Rising by Leigh Bardugo, Book 3 in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Oh my gosh. The, final, official trailer or something dropped not that long ago, and it gives me chills, and I'm, really, really excited. I'm trying to keep my expectations low, but it looks so good. I love the casting. I love the guy playing the Shadow Summoner. He does have Darkling vibes, and he's very calm and cool and a little creepy. So I'm really looking forward to this. I want to read this a little earlier in the month, just in case part of the reason I was struggling to get through Siege and Storm is because I'm having series fatigue, because I'm very impatient, and so I like to read a book and it's a contained story, and obviously this is not quite a contained story. So but I'm really looking forward to this. I keep hitting my tripod. But speaking of Leigh Bardugo, I found out that they were having some of the Six of Crows characters, or all the Six of Crows characters, show up in the show at some point. So I want to know who these people are when they show up. So I'm going to read Six of Crows when I finish Ronin Rising, so that I can possibly have time to finish this duology before the show drops, because I want to start watching it immediately, because I'm super excited. If you don't know what this book is about, I can't really help you because I don't know. I bought this years ago because it was recommended on Goodreads for a really good fantasy book, and I was wanting to pick up more fantasy books. So has the black sprayed edges, which is so classy. But yeah, I think they're like doing a heist or something. But it says 6 dangerous outcasts, 1 impossible heist. But I'm pretty sure this takes place sometime after Ruin and Rising. But the show is doing something where they are putting these characters on the same timeline. But what I'm gathering from the trailer is that it does have the same kind of tone as the Shadow and Bone books. So I'm still really looking forward to it. And I don't even know who these characters are, but people have like pointed out which characters in the previews and in the like screenshots and posters or whatever are 6 of Crows characters, and they look so cool. So I'm really looking forward to this. And then, oh my gosh, I really want to read this, The Echo Wife by Sarah Gale. This is adult sci-fi. It's kind of like, has like the Stepford Wives vibe. And so there's this woman, she's like a scientist, she's like super busy. So she clones herself to like, I don't know, do housework or something. And her clone starts having an affair with her husband, and then the husband dies. And so it's really short. And I just bought this book and I'm like, I want to read this book right now. So, and then I decided to read You by Caroline Kepnes. So I've already watched season 1 of the Netflix show, but I really want to read the book. And it's about this guy named Joe, and Joe is stalking this girl, and it's kind of like second person. I think it's going to be really trippy. And I'm one of those people, I actually like second person. It makes me feel like someone's like controlling me. And I don't know, it just sounds, I just really like second person. And I've been wanting to read an entire novel in second person for years. So I'm really looking forward to this. And then I want to make sure I'm reading a graphic novel every month so I can make sure I'm getting through my graphic novel TBR. And so I picked Tomi by Genji Ito. And this is like a horror manga. I don't think anybody's getting cut up in this panel. So I don't know a ton about this, but I think Tomi is like a succubus. And so she seduces these guys, makes them fall in love with her, then drives them crazy and drives them to kill her. And then she resurrects and she does it all over again. This gets a lot of praise from people who have read it. So I'm kind of interested to see what it's about. And it should be kind of bloody, or at least as bloody as black and white art can get, so should be fun. And I also want to make sure I'm getting through my unread poetry books, so I decided to put Dearly by Margaret Atwood as my poetry book this month. So, I mean, I'm not trying to read a poetry book every month, but I'm trying to read them regularly. So, yeah. And Margaret Atwood wrote The Handmaid's Tale, if you don't know. Also, side note, I did rearrange my shelves a little bit. I now have all of my adult books like on this section except for whatever's in this smorgasbord section over here, and then all of my YA books over here. It's just really exciting to me. So then I decided that I really wanted to read The Last Wish by Andres Stepkowski. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I cannot say this guy's name. Oh, I just put this bookmark in here. Isn't it cute? I just got this. I haven't gotten very far into the book yet, but look how cute that is. And so I want to read this because I really want to rewatch season 1 of The Witcher. And so I want to read this before I rewatch season 1 because I think season 1 is mostly or largely based on these prequel stories. So I don't really know what this is about other than there's this monster hunter named Geralt, and people don't like him because he's like some kind of mutant or something. And there's a bunch of other characters in here. I'm wondering if this bookmark's gonna get on my nerves or if it's going to break when I put it in my bag, but we'll see if it holds up. So speaking of books that I've read just a little bit of and haven't finished, I decided to finish the Beholder duology by Anna Bright. So I read The Beholder last summer and I really liked it. I thought it was very lyrical and beautiful. And it's kind of like an Iliad retelling where this girl goes on a courtship tour because her stepmother's trying to get rid of her, and she's hoping that she will find a husband overseas and then she won't come home, and then her unborn child will inherit kind of the title, the leader. There's not really like a kingdom. It's kind of like a alt history fantasy, but she's hoping that her child will inherit Potomac. And yeah, so in book 1, we meet the first 2 suitors, and it's very detailed, and oh my gosh, it's so detailed. And so in this book, I think we're going to get the other 2 suitors, and they're also going into some dangerous territory. Also, things are not what they seem, of course. So I want to make sure I get this book read before I forget what happened in book 1. And you can see, I've not gotten very far into it. It's really hard for me to finish series. Also, I was looking for this bookmark. It's my Little Mermaid bookmark, and it's been in this book for months. Also, this book is gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. But yeah, so not only do we have kind of a Iliad situation, we also have this courtship tour to finish. We also have some rebel stuff going on. And there's also some stuff going on with her dad and her stepmother. So that's also got to be wrapped up in this book. But yes, I'm looking forward to this. And I do think, as long as I don't run into any pacing problems, I should get all these books read this month because a couple of them are short. Graphic novels aren't too hard to read, even though that graphic novel is thick. I don't know if I showed you how thick this book is. But anyway. So that's all for this video. Let me know. Are you a fan of the Grishaverse? Are you excited about this show? I'm really excited. I'm trying not to be. But the previews just give me chills. I just have chills. And obviously I'm reading these books for the first time, so I'm new to reading Leigh Bardugo books. So let me know if you are a Grishaverse fan, or if you are a fan of any of these other books, either in the wrap-up or the TBR. Yeah, and if you're interested in any of these books and think that our taste in books are alike, feel free to stick around and subscribe and hang out and be some kind of entertained. And I will see you guys probably Wednesday. So quick note before I leave. So I'm wanting to participate in the top 5 Wednesdays. It's a Goodreads group, and I will put a link in the description below. And so like every Wednesday they have like a prompt. And so you have like 5 books that match a prompt and you talk about it. So I want to start doing that and start uploading videos on Monday and Wednesdays. So the next video should be up this Wednesday. So I will see you in the next video, and I hope you had a great February and that you have a good March. And yeah, it's springtime.